This afternoon, we are going to be discussing one of the most important elements in this kinds of forum, and one of the most complex, if I may, which is the human element. So our goal today is to examine how we can standardize the psychological resilience for our Filipino crew, who is representative, one of the representative backbones of our global trade. So if you would see here, the statistics give us good numbers. The Seafarers' Happiness Index had been up from the post-pandemic, which had been down. Previously, it's already at 7.26. However, the numbers have not allowed us to see certain nuances or certain problems that are not still addressed in this particular topic. So, some of the seafarers still report that there are still problems in terms of the commercial pressure, of course, persistent isolation from their family members and even from the crew members, and the disconnect between the regulatory compliance as well as the operational reality. So in the Filipino context, there had been a study which showed that there is an increasing trend in terms of mental health disorders, which includes suicide cases, along with anxiety disorders and depression, which are among the most common diagnoses. So the MLC STCW compliance is, of course, there. It is necessary, but then, of course, there are certain things that are still lacking. So what do we have to do in order to address this problem? So of course, we need to have a more proactive way to address the problem and not just react when the problem is there. Okay, we often wait for a crisis to happen before acting on it, but then just like with machines that we work on the vessel, there are already indicators when there are problems are existing. So there are what we call operational red flags in terms of our workers or in terms of the seafarers. What are those operational red flags? This would be the problems in how he does his work. If there is already a downtrend going on, then that's already a red flag that you should look into. Interpersonal red flag is another thing that we shouldn't miss because it's there. What are those? Withdrawal from meals. Because meals are one of the only chances for seafarers to interact with their coworkers on the vessel. If he missed those, then it should tell you something might be going on with this particular seafarer. Communication red flags is also there. We do know that internet allows the seafarer to connect easily with their family members, but then the problem is, what is the mood of the seafarer after this communication or after this call? It's supposed to make them feel happy, but then if the mood is still down, even after they have talked with their wife, with their children, then it's going to tell you that there might be something wrong. So when talking about problems on board, we're not truly helpless because just like with the machines, there are already signs. It's just that we don't know where to look. And these three things allow us to see what we should look into. So we're not necessarily going to be mental health professionals to see that there are already problems. You can easily detect them. Now, we have to address also the elephant in the room, which is the assessment. You might be asking, oh, they are considered to be fit for duty before going on board. What happened there? What's causing the mental health condition with this seafarer? We have to remember that the assessment was done on shore. And on shore, there is this situation wherein they are stress-free. So once they get on board, the different kind of stressors take place. So this is where the gap is. On shore, they are okay, but then on board, since they are in a different environment, definitely they will react differently with the stressors on the vessel. Okay, so what can the officers do? Because officers, they are responsible to see. Aside from the management of the whole vessel itself, management of people is also one of their core responsibilities. This is a very simplified way for you to help out or address the problem with one of the crew members. This is the ACT framework wherein A, you acknowledge what's happening once you notice the signs. Another would be, of course, how would you describe it without any biases or without any types of judgment in order for you to avoid labelings and to avoid unnecessarily giving reports that are inaccurate. And then, of course, with letter C, we have to communicate what's happening here and communicate with the crew member. How do you communicate when the problem is about mental health? So we have here the ORS conversation tool, wherein you ask open-ended questions. Now, this is very important because sometimes people just ask, how are you? If the person is saying, yeah, I'm fine, then the question stops there. However, if you ask, how have you been doing these past days? It keeps the conversation going, and it allows the officer to see where really is the problem during that point. Aside from that, affirmations would be good, that it would be okay to tell them that, oh, it's okay to feel stress. It's normal to feel stress because everyone does feel stress. Also reflect on what had been said, because if we're not going to see where the seafarer is coming from, then we don't fully understand what the problem is. And then, of course, since we already know where the problem is coming from, this is the time that we take action. So what are the actions that we can take? Of course, what are the safety and fitness for duty condition of the seafarer? We have to check that. And then, if escalation is necessary, then do escalate it and connect the person with the people who can help them with the problem. So what are those? Telecounseling or the helpline of your company. So even though the crew member is on board, the help is still there. However, you as the officer, it's the duty of those crew members to take a first aid approach. So you're not necessarily not going to do anything and just pass it to the professional, but then you're going to somehow mitigate and be the mediator in between that will make the support easier. Okay, so the problem might not be on board. The problem might be coming from home. And this is where the things often change, especially for Filipino seafarers. Problems often come from home and not on board. So we have to bridge this gap because sometimes, even though the seafarers, they are already miles away from home, they still carry problems on vessel. So what can we do for this? So of course, if the problem is coming from home, we have to address how it's going to be better communicated. So usually the problems are family conflict, financial pressure, caregiving emergencies, so on and so forth. So we have to make a shore side filter in order for the seafarers to lessen their stress about the problems at home and just focus on the things that they have to do on board. And this is where in educating family members in terms of the mental health of seafarers would be coming in handy. So for family members, it would be good for them to realize how to give a better or a more structured updates and a more supportive framing in giving this news to the seafarer, as well as giving escalation or escalating things when there are real emergencies, because not all emergencies at home are all emergencies. And of course, when this happens, the effect of the seafarer is going to be, well, it's going to be good, because it's going to lower the things that they're going to think about. It's going to help them focus better on their work, and it's going to help them to make better decisions on board. Because things at home, they will think about it as something that's already settled and something that doesn't have to be involving him actively. So with that, what are the things that we have to do in moving forward in this particular situation? So of course, we have to integrate into our SMS what are the mental health indicators, what are the escalation triggers and referral maps, how do we refer these cases, and defining confidentiality as well as documentation boundaries, and reviewing the incidents as well as near misses. We also have to train continuously in order for us to develop these things into a habit and not just a one-off reactive response. And lastly, once we're able to establish all of that, we're able to see fewer incidents and fatigue-related errors. We're going to have higher retention, trust, and engagement from our seafarers, as well as stronger and a more sustainable safety culture. So with that being said, thank you so much for your attention, and have a good day.